The Age of Enlightenment was a period in Europe that marked the beginning of modern times. It was shaped by the rise of a capitalist economy which supported powerful monarchies. Science, classical art and culture, and new ways of thinking about people and the world were key features of this time. Scientists were valued and supported, and thinkers looked back to the ancient Greece and Rome for inspiration, focusing on reason and progress. In America, the Enlightenment influenced political ideas. Thomas Jefferson, for example, developed the idea of natural rights, which emphasized that all people had certain rights that could not be taken away. Thomas Paine criticized religious institutions, while Benjamin Rush promoted the idea that a person's environment shaped their beliefs. William Channing argued for a political form of government where people had more freedom. However, for the Puritan colonists who had strong Christian beliefs, the presence of non Christians and people of color threatened their sense of identity. During the colonial period in America, Africans faced a crisis of identity. They were stripped of their African heritage and excluded from mainstream American culture. However, the golden age of modernity, that is from 1789 to 1871, brought, with science gaining more authority, nation states forming, and the bourgeoisie middle class gaining confidence. Modern art and philosophy began to explore human subjectivity or the inner lives and thoughts of individuals, leading to new ideas about society. While Romanticism, an artistic movement that emphasized imagination, emotion, and the exploration of different cultures, challenged the Enlightenment's emphasis on reason, science still emerged as a powerful force. The Romantic movement also sparked dreams of transforming society. However, after Napoleon's fall, the Romantic vision of a new social order faded and more repressive governments came to power. At the same time, the growing industrial capitalism created new forms of alienation, especially for the working class. Writers and artists during the American Renaissance sought to create a national culture that was independent of European influence. Authors like Edgar Allan Poe, Walt Whitman, Hawthorne, Emily Dickinson were prominent figures in this movement. The tension between American independence and European cultural influence remained strong, and the works of these authors were often eclectic, blending different styles and ideas. For African Americans, Christianity became an important part of their cultural and political life. The Methodists and Baptists in particular congregations because of their open, non-hierarchical structure, which allowed for more leadership opportunities and autonomy within the church. This provided black communities with a central institution that was distinct from the broader American society, helping them maintain some control over their cultural identity. The decline of European modernity from 1871 to 1950 coincided with growing tensions in the global economy, which was dominated by monopolistic capitalism. In the United States, this was reflected in the continuation of often imitated European traditions. Artists and intellectuals faced a choice: either create something uniquely American or continue to follow European models. For African American intellectuals and artists, this dilemma was even more pressing. Figures like Alexander Crummell and Du Bois had to navigate a cultural landscape that either excluded them or forced them to assimilate into dominant European or American traditions. The debate between Du Bois and Booker T. Washington reflected the larger question of how African Americans could achieve equality. Washington argued for a gradual approach, focusing on economic self-sufficiency, while Du Bois emphasized the need for political and social equality. Black progress in America during this period was often dependent on alliances with white elites against discrimination. World War II created labor shortages, which provided more job opportunities for African Americans. Participation in the labor movement, as well as achievements in sports and entertainment, helped increase visibility and challenge racist barriers. Despite the difficulties posed by a racist society, African Americans made significant strides toward freedom and equality. Postmodernism, a movement that emerged in the late 20th century, reflects a sense of fear about the future. The Cold War, a period of tension between capitalist United States and the communist Soviet Union, led to an authority crisis in knowledge. People began to question traditional sources of truth and reality, leading to a more relativistic view of the world where multiple perspectives were accepted. In American culture, postmodernism was characterized by increased specialization and professionalization. The African American experience mirrored this process of differentiation, with diverse groups within the community adopting different approaches to achieve progress. This made collective efforts for black empowerment more difficult. The idea that black people are fully equal human beings in the West is a relatively recent development. The notion of black equality in areas like beauty, culture, and intelligence remains controversial. Historically, the idea of white supremacy has shaped the experiences of African Americans. This belief system, which justified the domination of non-white people, has been deeply embedded in Western institutions and everyday practices. A genealogical approach inspired by philosophers like Nietzsche and Foucault explores how power operates in society. This perspective does not focus on individual or group power, but instead looks at how societal norms, categories, and ideas shape what is considered true or valid. Modern discourse, or the way people talk and think about the world, has been influenced by three major historical processes: the scientific revolution, the philosophical idea of Descartes, and the revival of classical culture. The scientific revolution, which emphasized experimentation and observation, gave new authority to science. Thinkers like Francis Bacon and René Descartes argued that knowledge could begin through experimentation, which would allow people to better understand and control the natural world. The idea of white supremacy in the modern West is closely tied to the recovery of classical antiquity. Enlightenment thinkers, artists, and scholars valued the beauty, proportion, and harmony found in ancient Greek and Roman art. They used these ideals to justify the belief that white people were superior to other races. Racist ideas also gained legitimacy through disciplines like natural history, which classified human beings based on physical characteristics. The development of categories such as those created by Francois Bernier in the late 17th century laid the foundation for modern racism. Bernier divided humanity into four races, and this classification influenced later thinkers like De Buffon, who argued that white was the natural color of humanity. Phrenology and physiognomy, pseudoscientific fields that claim to determine a person's character based on their physical appearance, further entrenched these racist ideas. However, not all Enlightenment thinkers supported the idea of white supremacy. Samuel Stanhope Smith, for example, argued for racial integration and intermarriage as ways to promote equality. Others, like Benjamin Rush, were abolitionists who opposed slavery and white supremacy, though they still believed in the unity of Christian values. The idea of white supremacy became deeply embedded in Enlightenment thought with influential figures like Montesquieu, Voltaire, David Hume, Thomas Jefferson, and Immanuel Kant, all supporting it to varying degrees. While Montesquieu's views on race were more ambiguous, Voltaire and Hume openly promoted white supremacy, using their ideas to justify the exploitation of non-white people. Ultimately, the rise of white supremacy in modern discourse was not inevitable. It was shaped by cultural, economic, and scientific developments, as well as the need to justify the domination of non white people in the modern world. While some thinkers challenged these ideas, the belief in white supremacy became a dominant force in Western thought and continues to have lasting effects today.